So I think we need to do more to create awareness and advocacy for what we're doing. And also in terms of, obviously, climate change, the fuel issues and the sulfur cap, I think that has to be really pursued with an earnestness that really creates the outcome that we need, that we have to get.
Welcome to the Shipping Podcast, where I meet interesting maritime professionals sharing their passion for the shipping industry and their everyday job. I am your host. My name is Lena Gosberg. Hello, Shipping Podcast lovers. Welcome to the 121st episode of the Shipping Podcast. I spent the day of the seafarer at the IMO in London, and then I stayed for a day or two. Why am I telling you this now? That happened in June. Because I did 4 interviews with people working in that impressive building in London. And they will explain to you what IMO is and how it works. And by this I hope I can shed some light on this UN body which is so important to the maritime industry. The first interview is with Linda Ryan, who is the director of the administrative division and part of the senior management committee at IMO, the International Maritime Organisation in London, and we met on June the 25th, 2019. Welcome to the Shipping Podcast. Could you please introduce yourself?
Good afternoon. I'm Linda Ryan. I'm the director of the administrative division here in IMO.
What is your background?
Well, I've over 25 years of experience in the United Nations, primarily in peacekeeping and humanitarian background. But recently here in IMO, just close on 2 years, and I'm a finance and budget professional by qualification, but I've now branched out into a broader spectrum of support areas to include human resources, procurement, IT, budget, finance, still there, as well as other support functions here in IMO and in the other organizations that I've worked in.
So where were you born?
I'm born in Dublin. I was born in Dublin. I'm Irish. Some people say that my accent doesn't belie my nationality because I think it's softened over the years, because I've had to be understood in places that probably wouldn't have understood me if I spoke the way I did.
So you were educated in Ireland?
Yes, I was, yes. Basically educated in university all the way through to my master's on primarily budget, finance, public administration, development, and supporting the developing world. And leadership, actually. I did a master's on leadership.
So what did you do when you finished school?
When I finished school, I started working for the Irish government. I was working in the finance area, again, in the finance government in health. I did a lot of sort of side projects during that tenure. Then from there, I went into investment banking, and I did a lot of work in the investment, foreign exchange, financial markets in both Dublin and London. And from there, I moved then into the UN, back into the non-profit sector. That was where I wanted to be. I didn't want to be in the profit sector. I thought I would add a lot more value to the non-profit, and I wanted to work to contribute to the social and the global as opposed to the profit side of things. I moved into the peacekeeping mission in the former Yugoslavia, and I spent some years there. And from there, I moved to Jordan, and I worked for the Red Cross. And I had a wonderful year and a half in Jordan. I was a regional delegate for the Middle East and North Africa. So I traveled all around the Middle East and North Africa. I then moved into Iraq, into Kurdistan and Baghdad for UNICEF. And I was primarily doing audit-like functions in Iraq. And that was quite a difficult posting, but probably one of my most enjoyable. And then from there I went to New York, which was very different. Headquarters New York, peacekeeping HQ. I spent 5 years there. Then I moved swiftly to Africa, did a lot of work all around Africa, 53 member states of the Economic Commission for Africa. Did a lot of cleanup, I would call it, restructuring of their administrative division. And from there I went to Cambodia, where I was the first person on the ground for the UN to set up the Khmer Rouge Tribunal for the UN and the Cambodian government. And from there I went to Geneva, and I went to ultimately the humanitarian sector, first with the humanitarian affairs part of the UN. And then I ended up being the controller for the refugee agency in which is known as UNHCR. And then from there, I came to IMO, where you find me now.
Wow. What a career.
Yes, I have to say I've been very privileged to be able to have worked in all of these fantastic places on fabulous mandates. Very demanding, very challenging, but I have learned so much along the way.
You must be a brave person.
Yes, I'm not risk averse. I actually like new challenges. I like going to places where I really don't know what to expect. It can be very scary, and it was, but you learn something from each experience, that you put yourself in front of difficult challenges, difficult things that really make you nervous. And you see how you react, and you grow a little bit more, and you develop a little bit more, and you figure out how you tick psychologically and emotionally, and you learn a lot. And I've really learned a lot. I'm very privileged to have had those experiences along the way.
Have you always been like that?
Not really. I think only when I went into the UN did I realize that you really have to challenge yourself. If you want to make a difference in the world, you actually have to challenge yourself. You have to push yourself a little bit further each and every time. And when you're in a very normative environment in the Irish government, you'll be challenged on certain types of work, but you don't really challenge yourself on a personal level as well as on an academic or a professional level. So the UN gives you all three, which I really appreciate and I really like.
So how did you come in contact with shipping and the maritime world?
Basically, I wanted to remain in the UN, and I wanted to work on a mandate that interested me. And one of the aspects of the maritime sector that really captivated my attention was the environmental side of things. And with the oceans being 80% of our planet, and the issues that we face right now on the environment and climate change, the maritime sector was something I thought I really like to know a lot more about it. I'd like to know how I can assist to make it better. And in my small way, in a support service like I lead, we contribute to the maritime sector by making sure that all our processes and all the business support that we give to our technical colleagues is the best it can be, so that they can do their work even better than they currently do. And we've embarked on, in IMO, since I came here nearly 2 years now, a year ago we launched what's known as the functional review. And I'm leading that project here in IMO. And we're looking at everything we do in IMO and how can we do it better. That nothing can be taken for granted. We have to look at everything we do and ask the question, is this the best it can be? If not, what else can we do? And it's an across the organization approach, pulling from the grassroots up, all staff involved, the younger women, men with new ideas, bring them to the table. We formed a group called the Young IMO, so that this group can contribute fresh new ideas to the sector, as well as the experience and the wisdom of the older experienced colleagues who, by virtue of spending 30, 40 years of their career in a specialised function, bring invaluable information and advice. So in that sense, we're bringing all of these people to the one table, and we're asking them their views in a very structured and formalised way, and then getting their ideas and putting those forward as recommendations and suggestions to move things forward on greenhouse gases, on ballast water, on whatever comes to the table as it affects shipping and IMO and how IMO can push that agenda forward.
That's really interesting.
It's fabulous, actually, and it's a really it's a wonderful way to bring everybody from all the different divisions together to the one table. Because in many instances, we work in our specialized functions, and we don't normally cross-fertilize because our work doesn't actually bring us there. But in this particular project, we're able to cross-fertilize across all the specialist functions. But more importantly, we're bringing from the grassroots all the way to the top, and from the top all the way back to the grassroots. So it's actually lateral and horizontal and vertical, so that we get a full cross-section of the organization and get their ideas, but more importantly, get action points out of those ideas.
Sounds like eating an elephant bit by bit. Or am I being a bit provocative now?
No, that's a very good description. But that's when the bravery comes in. You actually have to look at the big picture, see the vision, see where you want to get to, and that could take you 10 years to get there or 5 years to get there, and then take off bite-sized pieces of the elephant and see how you're going to get there, and build that roadmap or charter that course, to borrow a maritime phrase. So basically you map out where you want to go, and then how you want to get there, and who you're going to need to bring you there. And that's what we're doing now, so that we can try and have a realistic plan to make sure that the work that we do is proactive, relevant, feasible, accurate, and that we can get some advantage from it. We don't want to change for change's sake. There has to be an advantage behind what we do. And there has to be a benefit for the users, whether that's the member states, whether that's industry, whether that's IMO itself. It doesn't stop just inside IMO. It has to be for the whole community that uses IMO as a resource.
How do you do it? Do you have meetings or? It sounds to me like you are doing what's so popular in the maritime industry right now. To have labs or reversed tables of leaders. Young leaders.
That's what we're doing. We started off a year ago with a launch project where we had all staff, the Secretary General, launching the project and the ideas of what we wanted to try and achieve. And from there, we built working groups, as you say, little satellite units of specialty functions. But we made sure that they were diverse, and there was contributions from a diverse audience across the organization. And then we've produced newsletters, workshops, seminars, so created communication channels to ensure that the information flows between the different working groups. Then we had an all-staff meeting again last week, again hosted by the Secretary General, to give an update of where we are and the structure and the streams that we've created, and all of the working groups. We've produced strategy papers from the working groups, and now they all have to go forward to the senior management for endorsement to produce an action plan for the second year, and then we implement in the second year.
So you are halfway through now?
I would say the launch was a year ago, but the real work started on the working groups probably November, December of last year. So probably another year to 14 months to go.
That's really exciting.
Yes, it is. It's fabulous. And it really pushes the bar. It makes us think outside the box, and it makes us challenge where are we in the scheme of things, especially in the advent of climate change, and what are we trying to do with the other stakeholders in this industry to make the oceans cleaner. What are we trying to do to be part of that initiative? And how can we garner the efforts of our own colleagues inside the organisation, as well as the other UN entities in the same. You have a lot of work going on right now in the environmental programme, UNEP. On the oceans, you also have, there's a FCCC, it's an acronym, but it's climate change in Bonn. They work very closely with us as well. You have another entity in Geneva, the Labour Organisation, that's working with the seafarers. So you have lots of different initiatives going on in various different UN. How can we really bring that all together to make it a stronger core? And that's not to say that we'll take over theirs or they'll take over us. It's about being together, collaborative, to make it a stronger core.
To us who are not inside the IMO, looking just to London and seeing the grey building here, Can you please explain how it all works? It's the member states and so on. To me, it's just a jungle. Can you give me the short version, please?
Hopefully I can. I'll try. Well, IMO, very much like all other UN entities, has a governance structure with an assembly and a council. And ultimately, they are the member states who contribute to this organization and set the course of the mandate throughout the years. And they also approve our budget, and they approve the treaties and the conventions and all of the normative work that we do here in IMO. They also set the policy and the direction on the technical divisions and approve the treaties and all of the regulatory and legal frameworks on which we operate. And then inside IMO, we service as a secretariat to our member states, and we're structured in a divisional format. So you have the technical divisions. There are 3 or 4 technical divisions, the obvious ones, the Maritime Safety Division. You have the environmental division, which is called MED. You have the legal division, which is LED. They do legal instruments, obviously, and anything legal for IMO, and they also do the external relations work. A lot of interfacing with the member states, but other UN entities and other partners that we may have. And then we also have the technical cooperation division, and they work a lot with developing countries and developed countries who contribute to the benefit of the developing countries to help them build capacity on a variety of issues and train their governments and their staff in the maritime sector to bring them up to the standards that IMO are trying to achieve. Then we have the Member States Audit Division, and they audit the Member States in the implementation of all of our legislation. And then you have the support divisions, which are mine. I'm the administrative division. I take care of, as I mentioned, finance, budget, human resources, IT, procurement, publications, travel, etc. And we also have conference division. And conference division are the support service that run all of our meetings. And as we're IMO, and as we are a normative organisation, meetings are a very important part of how we achieve our work, how we work, in fact. So we have a very, very busy meeting agenda that conference division facilitate, and they also have to produce all the documents that are the output of the member states' discussions in the various different languages that we report in.
So each division has meetings, and in those meetings all member states are present?
The technical divisions, most notably, you would have, I think, the MEPC, which is the annual meeting of the Environment Committee, and all member states would attend. You would have then the MSC, which is the Safety and Security Committee meetings. There's subcommittee meetings that fall out of this, and there's also working groups that fall from these particular meetings, and they would work on specific topics that they have come out of the main committee meetings. The legal division have their legal meeting on an annual basis. Then you also have, starting this week in IMO, you have the Technical Cooperation Committee meetings. And again, there are subgroups that come out of those depending on the basis of the discussions. There could be topics of interest that the member states want to be further developed, and they could form either a subcommittee or a working group to take these ideas or to take these notions further. And we, in the administrative division and the conference division, will support that effort.
So if someone is unhappy in their country, how IMO works, I'm not saying that is what they are, but if they are, they should go to their representative in their own country
and raise the issues
and say, can you please bring this to the IMO? Because it's easier to sit there and say, they are wrong, instead of doing something about it.
Yes, I mean, obviously, issues of interest to member states and people in countries who have representation here in IMO, whether it's at the member state level or the council level or at the assembly itself, they bring forward their issues. Member states regularly bring papers to IMO for discussion and for debate. and they're debated in these various committees depending on the subject or matter in the paper. And we regularly see dialogue and discourse between member states on what it is they want to take forward. And it is the UN, the United Nations, and there's always diversity of opinion. But the UN is the table to bring that diversity to the table for discussion, compromise, and hopefully a solution. And I think that's why the UN and IMO is such an important place, because it is the convening of those opposing views to find solutions. Not to air negativity, but to find solutions and to come with an open mind and to get an understanding of the other person's view, and also to be able to come up collectively with the solution that's for the benefit of all, as opposed to the insular agenda.
I totally agree. I just wanted to get that out of my chest. So, who is deciding the theme for the year?
Well, that was actually, it came from the Senior Management Committee here in IMO. It was an internal drive, but I think there was a lot of input coming from WISTA, who I think the timing is absolutely right. Empowering women in the maritime sector is really, really important. Women contribute enormously to IMO at every different level throughout this organisation. We have a good representation in IMO right now in terms of staffing. I would like to see that improve at the senior levels. We're very good at the junior levels when it comes to female representation, not so good at the senior levels, the more senior levels. We want to bring a lot more women in at the middle management level. And we have a grading system that runs from P1 to D2, P1 to P5, and then D1 and D2s. We're not doing so well on the P4, P5, D1. D2, we're all right. We're not so bad. We could do better. But we need to keep the effort up to make sure that we're reaching out to competent women in the maritime sector to let them know we're here, that the jobs are here and available, and that competent women who are qualified for the role will be given a very good airing and a very good shot, and in fact will be given an edge. When you're actually faced with equal competence, we are going to ensure that the gender parity increases by employing more women, but they must be equally competent and equally qualified for the job. Otherwise, you do a disservice to the women themselves. So we are actively engaged in that. And my Chief of Human Resources is working very hard with Helen Bunny, our focal point here in IMO, as well as another colleague, Patricia Charlebois, who look at, and they're both in the maritime sector technically, as opposed to support service like myself and the Human Resources Chief. And we're trying to look at a strategy that will reach to every corner to make sure that women are aware of the roles that we have, the types of roles that they can compete for, and how to compete, how to get themselves ready for that competition. And I know my colleagues in the university in Sweden, there's a lady president, and she's actively engaged with getting more and more women into the education in the maritime sector to come out with their masters from the Maritime University in Malmo. So I think we're looking at all aspects, both from an educational perspective, from a progression perspective once they get here, to make sure that the women get the support that they need to train and develop to actually reach for the higher roles and get there. And also to be ambitious themselves, and not to be complacent. To really compete for those roles, because they're very competent women. They also make a very, very valuable contribution to the maritime sector in a lot of different ways. And I think I see a lot of growth in women in professional roles more and more and more. But we can't sit back. We have to keep the foot on the pedal.
From the outside, we're so happy now that it's Empowering Women's Year this year. I am worried about what happens next year. That's why I'm interested in who is deciding next year's theme.
Well, next year's theme, again, will be considered by inputs from a variety of actors, internal and external stakeholders. And it's then brought forward Generally, we land with about 5 or 6 suggestions that are coming from member states, coming from industry itself, coming from WISTA, coming from the staff, coming from the senior management team. And then we screen them down and we start to look at what was done previously, where are we now in the industry, what are the key issues that we're facing, both from an economic perspective, a political perspective, an environmental perspective, what's important in the world right now, so that our theme matches the moment and makes sure that it's relevant and it's actually fit for our purpose, fit for IMO.
I'm happy to hear that you have strategies that will continue this focus on women in the maritime industry.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and we're going to further develop that even more. We're working on a strategy paper right now, a gender parity strategy. And it's not just about meeting the gender gap and filling in numbers. It's about really empowering women to actually step up to the plate. So, and we already have a policy, but we want to broaden it and deepen it so that it's not just a numbers game. And as I mentioned, Patricia and Helen and myself and my Chief of Human Resources, Leah Dominic, we're all working on this to make ours a flagship type policy paper that we can actually sell to the other UN entities to say, look, you can be very small and specialised like IMO is, but you can also be very radical and be out there and achieve great things if you really put all of the organisation's attention on it. So we may have the theme for this year, but it won't be forgotten next.
I think you should focus on recruitment and the next generation. I have a soapbox, and that is, how do people look upon us from the outside? I mean, if you image Google the word seafarer or shipping, what images turns up then? It's usually a man with a pipe and a beard, elderly captains, Popeye.
Yes.
But it's not at all what shipping is like today.
No, I think it's certainly changing, and women's attitudes to work is changing, and men's attitudes to women working is also changing. And I think that's where we can really see a shift in many sectors, not just maritime. But I think we have to make the industry work for women, as opposed to women making it work for them. It has to be the other way around. And if you want women to come to the table, and women make a huge, valuable contribution to the industry, and I think the industry will only benefit if they have more and more women in it. And I think there are many success stories out there. One of your recent WISTA discussions that I was lucky enough to be a part of showed to me how many really successful women there are out there in the maritime sector, and how they've actually brought, in their own way, success into their various different roles and contributed to successful industry in so many different ways. So the industry has to look at how it can change to make it an attractive place for women to come. And I think that's the challenge.
I think the young generation, they don't have the same problem with diversity as we have. To them, it's the same.
True.
It's not an issue.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to learn from them.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it's a different generation, and it's theirs to improve. It's theirs to take to the next level.
We can only help them.
Yes.
In all the ways we can.
Support them. Mm-hmm.
So how do you see the future for shipping in general?
Well, what fascinates me is the notion of autonomous shipping. I think that's a really interesting part of shipping, and how far that can be taken. I think it's, the environmental aspects of shipping are also for me the most interesting, because I really want to be part of that clean-up effort, and to see where the effort needs to be made most. I think shipping in and of itself is probably the better actor in the whole pollution thing, because I think the pollution's coming from elsewhere. But how can shipping help the whole pollution issue, and how can they communicate in a way that brings the attention to where it needs to fall? That I think
maybe we should be the leaders and not the one being pushed into the corner all the time.
I think so, maybe, but I think they have to be more vocal. I think they need to be more vocal, because the average person on the street doesn't know that. So because you think oceans, you think ship, you think oh, it must be them. Well, listen, only when you're here do you realize, when I'm here inside IMO, did I realize that, it doesn't actually quite work that way. So I think we need to do more to create awareness and advocacy for what we're doing. And also in terms of, obviously, climate change, the fuel issues and the sulfur cap, I think that has to be really pursued with an earnestness that really creates the outcome that we need, that we have to get.
It's going to take some time. But I live in the middle of the Seka area. And we started the sulfur discussions a little bit earlier. And I can tell you that I had never seen so many innovative ideas and so many great new ways of thinking, thinking outside the box, that led to the Seka regulations. First, it was a disaster. Everyone was like, what are we going to do now? We can't meet those regulations. And then they put their thinking caps on. And it's so great to see all the technical advancements. And I think they are passionate about making things achievable with technology, because that is how they are. They are in the technology field, and they just want to excel in that.
I think technology is certainly going to be a changer for many industries. But obviously shipping can only benefit too from that cleaner technology. And hopefully cleaner technology also becomes cheaper and more efficient for the industry itself. But I think technology is the way forward.
But what is IMO's role in that?
In the development of the technology? Well, I mean, IMO plays a regulation role on some of on the technology itself and on some of the instruments. But in terms of, for me, the IMO has a role to convene the discussion, just like you mentioned there. When you have the table for people to sit around and discuss, they can bring the ideas out and have those discussions across industry and across member states and governments, so that everybody collectively can come to decisions on where are we going and what's the route that we can take, what's efficient, what's economical, and what's good for the environment, what's good for the public. And I think IMO has a critical key role as convener in that discussion.
Yes, because the companies that have actually taken the lead here and are trying to minimize their environmental footprint, they think that they are being punished because it's okay not to follow the rules that the regulators have set up. So they are in that corner. And the other ones, well, no one will see. It's like speeding with your car. If no one sees that you are speeding, you will continue. So there is some middle ground here. They have to meet in the middle, I think. And I hope that IMO is playing that role.
I think that's why we're here. For me, I think we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't have that conversation, those honest conversations, and to say the right things and bring the right agenda to the table. But I think member states have to also recognize that we can only be as successful as they are honest, so that everybody comes to the table and actually industry, member states, all of the actors, all of the stakeholders realize that we have to do what's best for everyone and compromise. But we can't be complacent.
How can the maritime industry become more visible? Because that is also my soapbox. How can we become more attractive to young people and to the general public?
I think, one of the things that I mentioned, the functional review, one of the things that we're trying to do as an example, just to explain, is that we're trying to promote IMO visually through media and through campaigns. If I give you the example of the staff, we're going to do little videos where we video staff and say, I am IMO, what does that mean? And we interview people right across different spectrums, different specialist areas, young and old, and they explain what they do and what they enjoy about their job. And then we start posting this out on social media, so that it then, IMO, you do that in there, because people are not aware. So you're going to bring awareness to what we're doing, while we're doing, and how exciting it can be. Also to do it within the UN family, to be able to promote IMO and what it does within the UN family, and to give an oral and visual flavour of the types of things we're working on, how successful we have been, and what achievements we've made, and where we're going on the future with greenhouse gases, with autonomous shipping, with all of those things that you hear about autonomous cars, but you don't necessarily hear about autonomous ships too often in the newspaper. But we should be bringing that sort of information into the public fora, so that you can actually get the people to understand, okay, and this is IMO and this is what you're doing. So the more you discuss, the more interest you generate, the more people you bring in. Young people will then be more attracted to where we are, because they can contribute their new young ideas. Those who are developing new technologies will recognize, I can employ the use of this type of technology there. So that, once you open up, the opportunities just go like a funnel. They keep going open as wide as you wanted to go.
That makes me happy. I think I've asked 110 people or so the same question. And you are the one coming here with an idea that is actually achievable. It's not that hard.
No, you just have to row in behind it and do it. It's about rolling up your sleeves and pushing it on there.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to that, really. And I hope that more people can see that they can do the same thing in their own specialities, because we are in silos. So we need to bring all of us together to say the same thing, to sing the same tune. Hey, we are in the most exciting industry that you can work in.
Promote it.
Who do you think I should meet the next? Who would you be interested in listening to in the shipping podcast?
I think for me, I always like to listen to somebody who spent a lot of time in the industry, because they have learned so much. So I always like to have two views, the younger technical view and the older wiser view, or sometimes maybe not always wiser, but the experienced views, because you get a wonderful balance of ideas when you're listening to two. So maybe have two people, a young person and an older person, and having a little bit of a debate on where they think IMO should go.
Great idea. I will have to think about how to do that.
Maybe I'll talk to Helen to see who might be the right people. But there are so many smart, articulate young people inside IMO, really well qualified, highly educated, very committed to what they're doing. They work really long, hard hours to support the member states and to deliver on their mandate, and they're really committed to doing a good job. And I think I'm really impressed by the level of activity that you see with some of these technical officers who do fabulous work. And that's not to forget all my colleagues in the support functions, because they, the technical officers can only be as good as the support functions can support them.
You never regretted that you found this smaller part of the UN?
No, not at all.
You got the bug now? The shipping bug?
Absolutely.
You will never leave?
No, it's a fabulous place to be. It's a fabulous place to work. And I have learned so much. It's been great.
Thank you, Linda, for taking the time to speak to me.
Thank you very much, Linda.
Thank you, Linda. Best of luck with the functional review. I'm looking forward to hear more about that at a later stage. I must share with you that I have been to Cartagena in Colombia, celebrating the World Maritime Day Parallel Event 2019. And what an adventure that was! I was invited because of my podcast. Apparently, I'm a celebrity in Colombia, which came as news to me, but that is great. I was invited by the Maritime Authority in Colombia, Dirección General Marítima. Apologize for my pronunciation. I do not know one word of Spanish, as I realized when I was in Colombia. But I was invited by the Maritime Authority to be the moderator of the opening panel discussions for this year's IMO theme, Empowering Women in the Maritime Community. The panel consisted of 3 power women. Birgit Sølling Olsen, the winner of the International Maritime Prize 2017, who is from Denmark. Lee Hun Kwai, the Chief Executive of Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore. And Katarina Stansel, Managing Director of Intertanko in London. We had a really great conversation after the 3 panelists shared their view in a short presentation each. We concluded that since the maritime industry is challenged in so many ways, through digitalization, Industry Revolution 4.0, machine learning, AI, autonomous ships, and so on, what will the changed workforce look like for the changed industry that we are already seeing taking its form? I wish that you have all been there to listen to these women. They had so much to share, and I was honored to be part of it. Before I went to Colombia, I participated in the London International Shipping Week, where I met a lot of interesting people. But I think I will leave that report until the next episode, where you will be listening to the Director of Legal and External Affairs at IMO. So, until the next time, from me to you, over and out. Thank you for listening to the Shipping Podcast. Don't forget to tell everyone that you meet that there is a shipping podcast available and that they should download it and listen to the maritime professionals who are sharing their passion for the shipping industry.